Heroes are not born, they're made. Or so the saying goes. It takes tremendous bravery to act in a situation that could put you in danger. But for a civilian to risk their life for the sake of someone else, that's truly heroic. So let's pay our respects and take a look at some of the most heroic actions people ever took. Dalibor Vabornik. Did you know that two-wheeled vehicle riders are 63 times more likely to be killed or seriously injured than car drivers? That's one hell of a risk. But take a look at this unusual accident in the Czech Republic that shows another reason why that statistic is so high. In April 2019, 85-year-old Czech motorcyclist Jiří Duš didn't notice the barrier of this railway crossing had already come down and accidentally plowed into it, landing in the middle of the train tracks. But fortunately, hero Dalibor Vabornik was on hand and sprinted to the old man's aid. It's a terrifyingly close call, and Vabornik just manages to drag Duš and his motorcycle out of the way of the train with moments to spare. Police said that were it not for Vabornik's quick actions, Duš would most likely have been killed by the train. Cristina Carrera Chavez. Would you dive into a deep lake to save a stranger if you didn't know how to swim? Cristina Carrera Chavez was a 21-year-old caretaker at Rancho Mirage in California of May 2007 when she had to make this decision. As she went about her day-to-day job, 87-year-old Jack Brownstone accidentally drove his car into the complex's lake. The water was about 20 feet deep, and as the car sunk lower and lower, Brownstone was unable to get out. Chavez ran to the bank of the lake and made a crucial decision. Even though she couldn't swim, she was going to help. She paddled out 25 feet into the lake to reach the car, and through an open window she managed to drag Brownstone out. But that's when the real struggle began. Unable to swim herself, she couldn't keep both of them afloat, and was submerged repeatedly in an attempt to keep Brownstone above water. The complex director of security then arrived and helped bring the man to shore with Chavez following them. Once they hit the bank, both were taken to hospital where they made full recoveries. The Chernobyl 3. To this day, Chernobyl is considered the worst nuclear disaster in history. Dozens were killed in the immediate aftermath, and thousands have died since, as over 400 times more radiation was released into the atmosphere than the Hiroshima bomb. But were it not for the Chernobyl 3, that death toll could have been in the millions. A few days after the main incident, the horrifying discovery was made that molten nuclear material was melting through the floor towards a coolant pool beneath. If the two made contact, the radioactive steam explosion to follow would have caused unimaginable nuclear fallout damage to the rest of the world. The pools needed draining, but there was a catch. It could only be done by manually accessing the valves in the very radioactive coolant pool. 3 men volunteered to help save the world: Alexei Onanenko, Valery Bespalov, and Boris Baranov. Armed with just wetsuits and flashlights, they jumped into the radioactive pools, which were a maze of water, darkness, and certain death. Through sheer luck, the suicide divers stumbled across the right pipe that led to the valves, and they managed to drain the pools and save the world. Many of their co-workers succumbed to acute radiation sickness within just 4 months of the disaster. But it's incredible to know 2 of the men are still alive. Boris Baranov passed away in 2005 from a heart attack. Omari Nega. If you were up against 8 men all by yourself, would your reaction be flight or fight? When Omari Nega found 8 men armed with machetes breaking into his orphanage, his response was instinctual: fight. He knew something was wrong when he saw a flashlight under his bedroom door, and in an effort to protect the 37 children he cared for, he immediately reached for a hammer under his bed and threw it at the attackers, drawing attention away from the kids. As he tried to chase them off, screaming at them in an attempt to alert the children, one attacker caught him on the face with the machete. But that didn't stop him from continuing to push them back until he could safely lock all the orphanage doors. Nega ensured all the children of Faraha Children's Home were safe and has the scar to prove it. Literally. It earned him a 12-stitch scar that reached from the top of his forehead to his upper lip. But it's a small price to pay for being such a hero to all those orphans. His plight ended up going viral on Reddit, and they ended up raising over $80,000 to help the orphanage. Lauren Preciosa. At 8 months pregnant, most mothers-to-be can barely touch their toes. But if you're Lauren Preciosa, being 8 months pregnant won't stop you from diving into dangerous waters to rescue someone else's babies. In 2014, 33-year-old Preciosa was out with her husband and son when she heard another mother screaming that 2 children were drowning. Preciosa, along with almost 100 bystanders, saw the 2 boys being dragged under by an extremely strong rip current, a powerful, narrow channel of water that can move faster than an Olympic swimmer. Seeing this, everyone around her was hesitating, and no one was going in to help. As the boys got dragged under, Preciosa made the split-second decision and dived in. Grabbing a boy with each hand, she tried to get back to shore, but with both hands holding the boys, she couldn't swim, meaning she slowly began to sink. Just as it seemed like all hope was lost, a man from the shore grabbed her and dragged all 3 of them to safety. Rip currents in Australia are a huge hazard for swimmers, with over 230 people having been drowned by them since 2004. So it's lucky that this expectant mother followed her maternal instinct, as everyone involved, including her own baby, are fine. Ashley Marie Aldridge. Do you ever have a nightmare that you're tied to train tracks and the train is just around the corner? For 75-year-old Earl Moorman, that nightmare was a reality. Attempting to cross a railroad track in Illinois in 2015, his electrified wheelchair got caught in the rails. He tried to move with no success. Then in the distance, he heard a sound that made his heart drop. A train horn. He began screaming for help when his savior, Ashley Marie Aldridge, saw him from her nearby home. The 19-year-old also saw the gates and lights of the crossing were activated, indicating the approaching train was less than 2,600 feet away. She ran barefoot onto the tracks and attempted to push the wheelchair off with no success. Seeing the train speeding towards them at 78 miles per hour, she tried again, giving her just enough of a tilt to drag Moorman clear of the track, mere seconds before the Amtrak train barreled past and destroyed the wheelchair. Her selfless act surely saved him from the same fate as his wheelchair, and she was celebrated as a town hero. Kiani BA Thorpe. Now here's a heroic story we can really get our teeth stuck into. In the United States, 73 of the 444 recorded shark attacks between 2010 and 2019 happened off Hawaii's coast, as Colin Cook found out all too late. The surfer was about 600 feet from shore when he was attacked by a gigantic 13-foot tiger shark. Without warning, the shark bit off most of his leg, as well as a chunk of his hand. Colin grabbed his board in the bloodied water, which was sure to cause a shark feeding frenzy. If you were paddleboarding some distance from the attack, would you help? Without hesitation, Kiani BA Thorpe spotted Cook from his paddleboard and raced towards him. He bravely thrusted his paddle against the massive shark to push it away as Colin moved to Kiani's board. Kiani pulled Colin onto his back, and laying on his board, he began paddling for his life. Colin was leaving a trail of blood in their wake, risking them attracting even more sharks. But Kiani, using nothing but his arms, swam relentlessly over 1,300 feet back to the shore. Colin was successfully treated for his severe injuries, and Kiani, being understandably exhausted, was celebrated as a hero. Alastair Atchison. If you have a fear of flying, you're going to love this man. Alastair Atchison was the co-pilot of the ill-fated British Airways Flight 5390 in June 1990. As the plane carrying 87 people reached 17,000 feet, a faulty windscreen panel shattered, decompressing the entire cockpit and sucking the pilot out of the plane. His legs wrapped around the controls while his upper body flailed uncontrollably in the 480 km/h winds. A member of the cabin crew grabbed his legs to keep him from being sucked out entirely. They assumed he had been killed by the impact and were petrified that the body might be sucked into one of the plane's engines. But at that altitude, there was very little oxygen and temperatures were below -1.6 degrees Fahrenheit. So cabin crew had to take turns holding the pilot's legs before the elements got to them. But co-pilot Atchison had no such respite. He was now the only man on board who could fly the plane. Braving 22 minutes of the terrifying cockpit conditions on a craft he was relatively inexperienced at flying, he inexplicably managed to keep the plane completely under control while preventing the rest of the passengers from suffering from hypothermia and hypoxia. Upon their landing, it was discovered the pilot was alive. The crew were all treated for minor wounds and frostbite, but somehow everyone survived this terrifying ordeal thanks to Atchison. The Angel of Nanjing, Chen Si. The Nanjing River Bridge in China is a colossal railroad bridge that took over 8 years to build. It also measures in at 229 feet, making it a hotspot for people looking to take their own lives, with over 2,000 people having done so. But in 2003, something changed. Chen Si, an ordinary fruit and vegetable seller, was making his way to work across the bridge when he saw someone readying themselves to jump. Without thinking, Chen Si launched forward and grabbed them, pulling them back across the railings. After talking to the person and getting them help, Chen wholeheartedly began patrolling the bridge on the weekends and after work to help those in need. It's estimated he's helped save over 300 people from themselves, often selflessly putting his own life in danger to help bring them back over the rails, and has been given the nickname the Angel of Nanjing. Mahmuda Gassama. What would it take to persuade you to scale the face of a 4-story building with no safety net? $10,000? $50,000? For Mahmuda Gassama, there was no reward needed as he perilously scrambled up 4 stories to save a child dangling from a balcony. The undocumented Malian immigrant had recently arrived in Paris with hopes of starting a new life, but as he walked down the street, he heard people shouting and sounding their car horns. When he looked up, he saw the boy dangling precariously from the balcony, with a man on another balcony trying to hold on to him for dear life. Without thinking, Gassama clambered up the building with his bare hands in a matter of seconds and hauled the child back to safety. Just one wrong move from Gassama could have resulted in a fall, and from that height there is only a 50% chance he would have survived. That's an incredible risk to take, and he has since been made a French citizen and been offered a role in the fire service, which he subsequently took up. So would you have gone to the lengths these heroes did? Let me know in the comments below, and thanks for watching.